Rightio. Well, that's a good way to start. We even minimized Spotify in the end just in time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's been a while since we've done Casting Chamber. It has been a good while, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to be back with Munchables, who's going to be joining me for today. First things first, I'm sorry I had to show you a tweet of what you just witnessed.
Did you show them
I'm probably not going to show them because I feel like I'm going to get in trouble.
I thought you were saying that to chat. I thought that was like, sorry about that, chat.
But essentially, an OCE jungler showcasing a real life Gragas W. That was something to kind of warm us up.
That was a league player. Holy shit!
Well, I mean, like not the person doing it, the person who tweeted it. I feel like
it basically gets a bin and bashes someone on the head with it.
Yeah, I've put it in Twitch chat so we can all experience it. Yeah, something like that. It is good to have you on the show today. I've been meaning to come back around, and I've been talking to you about this for a little while as well. So it's like I feel like it's a long time coming. And of course, you and I have been casting in the same league for. Since 2020? You came on LPL 2020. It was 2020, wasn't it? Jesus, I'm really
start 2020.
Yeah.
And it feels like a lot longer than that, doesn't it?
Well, doesn't it? Because we did that 2020 year in China, where if a lot of people don't know, we actually
that took 3 years off of my life.
Oh yeah, we couldn't travel, we couldn't go anywhere. We were literally stuck within Shanghai from.
Dude. I mean. And you came and camped out. You came and camped out at our flat when COVID hit. We basically just sat all in one flat for, what was it, like at least a week, right?
Oh, I think it was a couple of weeks because I was scared because it was when COVID hit and it was like January, February. So we did the first week of LPL. Everything was normal. And then after that, it was like, all right, this thing called COVID's going on. Oh, hello. Having a beer. For me, it's like 8:30. So that's wild.
Oh, speckled head. It's 10:30 here, so time zones, not even once.
That's why a little bit early. But I was you guys let me camp out in your flat at the start in Shanghai, and that was a couple of weeks after. That was even after we came back as well, because remember we all went to our home countries, and then we came back in, and then I camped out again.
Conglomerated.
Yeah. And then I
remember you cooked delicious meatballs one day.
Oh, did I?
That's my most prominent memory of you being over there. And also I made a WeChat sticker of you like leaning on the TV looking existential.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That still exists somewhere. It still exists.
It's on my phone.
we had it's very overwhelming, especially when COVID's starting and we didn't know what was going on. That was like a big year. That's why it feels like we've been working together, I think, longer than we actually have. And the reason, I wanted to get you on the show too is because I think when we're talking about play-by-play, like I know personally that having worked with you, that you have a very good grasp on casting, but not just that, but you have a very good, I guess, your way of analyzing the role and analyzing casting, I think is actually quite unique. I don't know anyone who can kind of remove themselves like they're looking down on the role and actually have a very balanced opinion. So I want to get straight into things. You got the beer open.
High praise, thank you.
Were you not expecting it? Do you want me to shit on you a bit?
Flattery can get you to a lot of places in life, and it's working. It's working.
That's true. I mean, that's true. I mean, I'm trying. Normally, I can be a bit of a dick. So this is a good change. Let's hop into it because. As I already talked about, I already gave you the praise that I feel like you understand the role really well. I want you to kind of like walk me through the intro of Munchables first of all, like how you actually began, how you became you as a caster. I guess a little bit of the backstory as well, and like how you got to the LPL would be an awesome way for you to kick it off.
Sure. So it's quite a long story. I've been in esports for a while at this point. I started. I honestly have no idea what year I started like watching esports, but I watched League of Legends specifically from like season 2 onwards. But I was originally a big StarCraft fan and a huge World of Warcraft arena fan. So I was actually a fan of Azale long before he started
you
commentating
were?
League of Legends. Yeah.
Wow.
So my favorite player was Snutsy, who's a warlock. But I digress. I'll not talk about World of Warcraft. So basically, I was a big esports fan already. I worked in an estate agent. I was fucking miserable. And basically, me and my friends would watch LCS every day. We'd be chilling in TeamSpeak because Discord didn't exist back then. And we would watch LCS all day, every day. And I would be talking constantly about the games and about what the teams are doing and all of this. And one day, my friend Jordan basically said, not Jordan as in lyric, different Jordan Hill. Shout out to Jill. We called him Jill because there was 3 Jordans in his class, so they each got nicknamed
Jordan Hill, Jill, yeah.
So Jill, shout out to him because he was like, "Hey, you talk more than the commentators do. Why don't you try being a commentator?" And I was like, "Hey, that's not a bad idea." So I started commentating just random shit on YouTube. So back in the old days, on the League client, there was a little box at the bottom that said "Watch Live," and it was high elo games. Whenever there was a high elo game playing, you could just click, and it would take you to it. So I just did those for a few episodes on YouTube, and literally just was commentating those. I would look for ones where there would be like a pro player or whatever. So if you go back on, I don't know if they're public still, but if you go back on my YouTube channel, there's a bunch of them. It's called Spectate Live. There's like 12 episodes or something of like me finding Alex Ich in solo queue and like commentating his game or whatever.
Yeah.
I posted that to Reddit and I was like, hey, can anyone give me some feedback? Because I want to do the LCS, but I don't know how to get better. Or does anyone have any gigs? Or sort me out, guys. And it got like 50 or 60 upvotes or something like that, which, when you've never
That's not bad.
really succeeded in any form before, like that was a big deal to me.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of comments with criticism and stuff. And there was this guy called Josh who commented on that saying, hey, in fact, there was a guy called Josh who runs the Null, which is the UK University Esports League, basically the National University Esports League in the UK. So he messaged me, but there was another guy called Sean who was doing a dissertation at university. He was doing his 3rd year. It was in like communications and media sort of deal. And so for his dissertation, he ran a League of Legends tournament. So he got 4 teams of his mates at uni, and basically it was like to prove that he could like organize something and deal with the communication and the management and run a broadcast for it and all of this stuff, basically. And he basically messaged me off of the Reddit post and was like, hey, do you want to do this? I was going to do it myself, but you seem like you want to commentate. I've got something I need commentating. What do you say? And I was like, Sean, I'm there. So we did that. It was only a couple of hours or something. And then afterwards, he gave me 20 quid on PayPal. I was
there
like,
you go. That's your first
so my first ever gig. First ever gig, I actually got paid.
You got paid, dude. A lot of casters don't get that, so you're already like moving towards the big leagues.
Exactly. And then there was a couple of years of not getting paid that followed that.
Well, that also happened.
I did a lot of university esports and all that kind of good stuff. Went and did Epic LAN, which is unpaid, but you get free beers and like you get a ticket to LAN and all that stuff. And they pay for your trade. So, who's not going to LAN anyway, right? So that was pretty good. And then eventually came around, I managed to get Insomnia, which is like the big UK LAN. They were paying 50 quid a day. Let's fucking go, lads.
What year?
Practically
what year was that?
a career.
What year is that? We're talking 50 quid.
Let me check, because that was, well, I mean, it's not a big gig anyway, right?
No,
so it's not.
A paid gig in
literally
esports is still significant. Like I think you underestimate how big it is getting paid for a gig in esports. If you're talking about something that's like not that big, there's a lot of people that try and get away with not paying. They pay you an exposure, which is beyond a meme at this point. So that's still a big deal.
The beauty of the UK scene is there is no exposure. They can't use that excuse.
Oh, dude, they try over here, but it's the same deal.
Yeah. So this was 2015. I've just checked the dates of the event. It was in August 2015 at the Rico Arena. And this is also coincidentally the first time I ever went to a casino, because everyone goes to the casino after the LAN. But that's a whole different story. I lost track of where I was at. So yeah, we go and commentate at I-55.
Yep.
And that was my first ever paid gig. Off the back of I-55 and off the back of Epic Land and stuff, and off the back of Newell, I'd ended up working with some of the guys at ESL, because Newell ran like every other month or something like that. Basically, their big event, their big finals happened, and ESL UK had agreed to host them for free because it was university stuff, and it was like they get the shout out that ESL is a good thing to all of these universities, right? They get to be a partner, and Newell gets a cool broadcast to finish the season, right? So I got to go work at the ESL studio, which at the time was like, holy fuck, a real studio.
I can imagine.
Which was actually just like a hole in the wall in Leicester. It was not glamorous, but it was fucking cool because it was a real thing. And I was still doing it for free, and I had to pay for my own petrol to get there and stuff. And my mate, who lived in Scotland, would get a train down from Scotland to my house, stay over that night, then we'd drive to Leicester the next day to cast in this studio, and then drive back from Leicester that evening. It was an adventure, but I got to meet all the ESL staff. They were starting to run more and more League of Legends stuff, and they were also running Counter-Strike stuff, and they were having to pay freelancers every single time. They were like, hey, why don't we get someone that can commentate both of these games, and then we can pay less money.
True.
So I was that guy that under earned a little bit, I'll admit, but I was still very, very green around the ears. So to be honest, it was fair play. And I finally got I'll give you a little stat here.
Yeah.
I was the first person to be full-time employed as a esports commentator in the UK.
Wow.
Because Joe Miller and D-Man had both been pros before me, and Red Eye and all of these old school guys. But they weren't in the UK. They were all in Germany when they were full-time. So I was the first domestic full-time commentator for esports, which is a pretty cool title to have.
That is.
Yeah, so that was exciting. Stayed at ESL for 3 years.
So we're moving to 2018 a little bit. 3 years, like
So this was 20. What year did I say Insomnia was?
You said Insomnia was 2015, April 2015, if that was the right month.
Yeah. So I think I joined ESL 2017, if I'm not mistaken. It's hard to remember the dates.
That's why I got to get the timeline working, because you've had a lot of it. Like you've had a lot of like jumping experience, which is I think very normal in esports, right? Like one gig leads to another, company, a better company, like a leg up. Trying to make your way through that door. So
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of that, and it took a long time for me to get out of the voluntary side of things and into actually getting to work full time.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken on the timeline, I could be totally wrong here off the top of my head. I could get my CV up and check, but it seems like a lot of effort. I think it was 2017 in the summer that I joined ESL. I think that works. No, it might have been 2016. Shit, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is not a comfortable conversation for me. I'm getting really old because that doesn't feel like that long ago. Anyway, whatever year it was, undisclosed year. Wait, IEM was 2017, so I'd already been at ESL for 2 years at that point. So it must have been 2016, or at least a year, or 2015 maybe.
Okay.
Shit.
So I know you're really thinking back, and this is obviously hurting, but because that led us to IEM, right?
Yeah,
because IEM's obviously a very big event. It's okay. It's all right. IEM was like, I know you've talked about IEM a little bit as well as a very big event for you. So lead me into that.
So I joined ESL. I was casting League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Hearthstone. there was some. I cast Guild Wars 2 while I was there as well. I cast Guild Wars 2 Pro League. And I cast a whole bunch of other random games at random one-off events, but those were like the 4 that I did consistently. But League of Legends was still the one that I was like, that was the one I joined for. That was the one I wanted to do. When I first joined ESL, I never told them this, but ESL to me was a stepping stone to get on LCS, right? Like, I wanted to be on EU LCS. ESL was just like, okay, this is where I can get my reps in, and then I'll go straight to LCS, which obviously worked out, as you can see. Been at the LEC working for years. You know how it is. And so I'd been at ESL for like maybe, I think it was like a year and a half or 2 years. And there'd been a few like League of Legends events, IEM, and other things that I had not been offered because there was D-Man at HQ and there was Machine at HQ and a few other people that
pretty hard competition
that ESL would rather have, right? Because I was not a big deal. I was just some random UK guy. And every single event, I would email Joe Miller and be like, "Hey man, can I do this event, please? I'm begging you." And every single event, he'd be like, "No, fuck off." He would actually, obviously not. But in 2017, I finally got to go and do IEM, and it was fucking awesome. And like, it's still one of the best experiences of my life as a commentator, because since then I've never done a stadium event with a crowd. This is all pre-COVID, and it was in the Spodek Arena in Poland, and the tickets were free. And Poland's big on esports, so everyone just, why would you not, right? Why would you not go and watch that? Yeah. And it was like, cool, international competition, free tickets. Like, why would you not go? So the stadium was packed out. And the best part was one of my best mates, the guy that I lived with at the time, was one of the people sort of helping on the organizational side of things, because we both worked at ESL, right? He was the talent manager for it. So I basically got to have a week and a half of my roommate being like my runabout. So I could say to my roommate, "Go get me a Red Bull." Obviously not quite, but that was quite enjoyable.
But that relationship was fun after that,
no, we're still good friends, obviously. But this was actually the second IEM I'd been to, but the previous one I had done. I did Rainbow Six Siege when that first came out at an IEM, but it was
that literally would have just come out at that time.
It was literally the first. Actually, yeah, there's another accolade for you. I cast the first 2 weeks of Rainbow Six Pro League. Wow. There you go.
Okay.
Because it was at IEM, and I was a ESL commentator. But that was over in the conference hall, and then League of Legends was in the actual fucking arena. It was the real shit, you know. I got to cast the semi-finals with Vedius. I met Lyric there. He was one of the coaches for Hong Kong.
I feel like
Esports
he forgot. Like when you first met him, I don't know if he actually remembered. Didn't you have to remind him?
I forgot.
Oh, you're the one that forgot.
When we first met. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we first met, I said, "Oh, nice to meet you," and he was like, "We've already met," which was funny because we'd literally talked to each other in DMs, like leading up to meeting. and basically been like, "Hey, it's a long time since IEM. We've already had this conversation." Then like 2 weeks later or something, we meet in person, and that conversation's just fucking gone from my head again.
Oh, I know the feeling. Oh god,
that's basically my life in a nutshell.
But that's wild. I mean, you met Jordan, you met or Lyric. Sorry, I got it the other way around. About who remembered who. Vedius. Didn't you also? I think you told me you worked with Frosk at that point as well. Like you came across a big couple of names.
So Vedius, just random note. Vedius actually worked in the UK scene with me. I was one of the people that helped Vedius learn to cast in the first place, because he was a player in the UK scene that transitioned into casting. So me and Vedius had already worked together in the past, which is why we ended up working together at IEM, right? Because we already kind of knew each other. And then other talent at the event, there was. The play-by-plays were me, Dracos, and Pyrotechnics.
Oh, nice.
Excoundrel was the host. My mate Desichu, who now works on Rainbow Six Pro League stuff, he was the like social media reporter guy. And then the colors were Froskurin, Papa Smithy, and Vedius, obviously. And then there was also Crumbs there as a static desk analyst.
Wow.
Who Crumbs is a great guy, by the way. Incredible banter. I really enjoyed hanging out with Crumbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they were all like Frosco, especially was incredibly nice. I hung out with Pyrotechnics a lot.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it was very like, I don't know what the word is. It was kind of intimidating hanging out with all these people that were like already internationally famous for League of Legends. I'm like some dude that nobody's ever heard of that has like 1,000 followers on Twitter or something. Like, nobody knows who the fuck I am. And I'm there like trying to bravado it up like I'm a fucking hot shot, like trying to fit in. And I clearly don't fit in, right? And like my prep was fucking garbage because I'd never done a proper event before, really. And like, you know, the level required at those kind of events is so much higher than what's required at the UK scene. Yeah. And obviously I'd never experienced that, so I didn't know that at the time. And in hindsight, I did a really shit job. Like, I think my commentary was fine, but like by today's standards, it was appalling. The preparation was appalling.
First live event though. I mean, it's so hard because I know, like, first time live event as well. Like, it's very overwhelming too. So there's a lot of emotions going through, but you still work. I mean, you worked with big names. Still, you know, a huge event for you as well. Like, doing an IEM is massive. And it was another accolade for you, right? Wasn't this the last? One, It was the last one for League of Legends.
I personally killed IEM. I'm sorry, everyone. That was me. Yeah,
it's my bad. Fault.
Yeah, I did such a bad job. They were like, we just fucking cut the whole thing.
Cut this game, dude. Oh, it feels bad.
I will say though, that feeling of like, I got to cast. If I'm not mistaken, I was casting. I'm pretty sure I was casting Yankos.
Okay.
Well, I definitely cast Yankos, but like the game that I think it was the semifinal I cast was like G2 Esports versus Rox Tigers. Not the good Rox Tigers, the shit Rox Tigers that came after Rox Tigers.
Oh no.
And obviously Yankos is Polish. We were in Poland. And I remember just like kind of playing to the crowd a little bit and like shouting Yankos's name and feeling the crowd like roaring and like you could actually feel the crowd going. That was like one of the best feelings I've ever experienced, and I'm desperate to feel that feeling again.
I know it's been annoying, especially like, I mean, we'll get to you coming to LPL. You cast a lot of big name players in that event as well. I remember you talking about it, but the transition is what I'm curious about, right? Because we're 2017. You joined LPL 2020, 2018, 2019. I know what was the void in there before you came to LPL, and I'm actually curious about your like how you joined LPL too, and how you got to, I guess, where you are now.
Yeah, so post IEM, I forget the exact timeline because I forget what happened when in all of this, because ESL was like a very frantic time where as a like resident ESL caster, you do a lot of events. It's really, really good for, I mean, I don't think they do it anymore. I'm pretty sure they got rid of all of their full-time casters, but I think I got lucky to be in that little tiny esports bubble that existed where they were hiring full-time casters to just cast random events, right? To just cast random games. And I basically, I got to go around. I traveled a shitload. I went all over Europe just casting random shit.
Wow.
And like going to Gamescom every single year and going to IEM every year. I went to, I think, 3 IEMs in total. 2 of them were just casting random games. And then one of them was obviously League of Legends at the end. But off the back of that, I ended up interacting with a lot of really cool games that I'd never heard of before. But one of the games that I cast while I was at ESL was this game called Lawbreakers, which nobody's ever heard of. It was it was like a huge marketed game that really flopped, much to my dismay, because I was going to be like the front man for So basically, they paid for a slot at Gamescom where basically there was this esports stage where there was me and one other dude, and we were just commentating all of the games that had paid to be on the esports stage over the weekend. So I think we commentated like 9 different games over the weekend or something.
What?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Trying to prep for that is basically impossible because it's games you don't even know. You can't even prep for the players. You got to prep for like knowing what the fuck is going on in this game, basically. One of them was like a Resident Evil game that had PvP.
Okay.
It was super strange. It was like a tactical shooter based in Resident Evil. One of them was Splatoon. I have cast competitive Splatoon. And there was a bunch of others anyway. Yeah, there was like some Smash Bros. Rip-off anime fighting game thing as well, which I was just like, I have no fucking idea what's going on here. There's this dude next to me that's like from that scene that's like going crazy, and I'm like, yeah, that was sick.
That was sick.
But yeah, anyway, I ended up casting this game called Lawbreakers. I got on really well with the devs. I went and hung out with them a bit because the game wasn't out yet, so I couldn't prep before the event. So I went to the stall to play the game a bunch so that I could commentate it better.
Yeah.
And so I was asking all of the devs a bunch of questions about the game to try and learn what the fuck was going on so I could commentate it well. And so I was like hanging out with the devs for a lot of that weekend. And then when you're in downtime, there's not that many people that you know there, so I would just go and hang out with those guys. But then they were doing a whole like marketing circuit for this game that was coming out next year, right? So they were going to go and do this at other events. So I got to go and do PAX East with those guys, and I got to go and do E3 with those guys as well, which was really fucking cool. So I've done a lot of the like global games convention circuit as a commentator, which I don't. It's kind of a weird. Yeah, I don't know how it kind of just came out pure luck, but yeah, so that was really cool. But then I also ended up doing one of my last big things that I did with ESL was Vainglory. So there was this random event. This was the biggest event the UK office had ever done. So for context, when I joined ESL UK, I was the 7th employee. At this point in time, we're like 2.5-ish years on from when I first joined. We've got like, I think 35 employees or something.
Wow.
So the company has grown substantially in these couple of years. And all of our big events, everything big that we do is like ESL HQ has an event. We're going to use the UK office to run this event. And the UK office was basically figuring out the budget, taking a minuscule profit off the top of it, and then HQ was taking the vast majority of the profit, right?
Right.
Which is, how these kind of companies work. But this one was not through HQ. This one was ESL UK's own thing. So that ESL UK was taking its own profit margin. It was organizing its own budget. It was telling the dev how much it needed. All of this, like nothing from HQ. This was all us. So it was like, it was a big deal for me as a commentator because it was a big event, but it was a bigger deal for the company because it was like, this is going to be our crown and glory if we can nail this. If we can do a good job on this, this will be like, we're on the fucking map now. We're part of ESL, but we're like the ESL office. So this is something people don't know. The ESL offices all compete with each other, or they did. So like ESL UK versus ESL France versus ESL Spain versus ESL Poland, like they're all fighting for the same gigs. And you have to be shit hot and cheap to be able to get the best gigs, which is why Poland is the only ESL office that is basically still open, because they're good and they're cheap as fuck because nothing costs anything in Poland.
That's true.
Cost of living is exceptionally low, and as such, minimum wage is exceptionally low. So running a studio in Poland versus running the studio in the UK, it's pretty dissimilar cost of living, right?
Yeah.
So ESL Poland kind of outpriced all the other ESL offices, which is why ESL kind of closed most of its offices. They still run, but just as like product management centers as opposed to full studios these days. Anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here.
That's all right.
They should pay me to talk, dude. I can talk.
I reckon you make a lot of money talking. Yeah, more than 50 quid these days. That's for sure.
Hey. ASL Australia is still open. That's true, but you guys have no competition. Nobody is in the same hemisphere as you.
That's
so
true. There's there's an ESL Asia now. There's like I know there's I mean the CEO moved to Asia to run that.
Oh, really?
And ESL Australia's still going. Dude, it's funny, like just a tangent. It's funny that you talk about the inception of, like you were like part of the first part of ESL UK when I was part of ESL Australia before it was even ESL Australia. It's called ACL Pro, and there were like 6 people in an office.
Yeah, that's the same with ESL UK. So it was Quota. It was a marketing company.
Oh, yeah.
Then got bought by ESL because Quota did some broadcasts for ESL as like white label essentially, and then kind of got brought under the umbrella.
Yeah.
So exactly the same deal. I imagine that's probably true of other studios as well. Now we think about it.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was just the UK office thing, but
it's probably a lot more. But yeah, Mac was just saying that ESL Asia picked up local commentators that lost some work for the people in Australia. So it is kind of happening. I mean, like Poland, UK, Asia, Australia. Yep. I mean, Australia's like in that Oceania bubble, but I mean, Asia's separate anyway. So yeah, it kind of goes on. Sorry. Anyway, so before I take us further off, so you've talked about Vainglory. You left your Vainglory jacket in China, by the way. I don't know if that's coming back with my box of goods. Didn't you leave that jacket you had?
Oh, no. I've got my Patagonia.
What a what?
The coat?
Yeah,
Patagonia.
The bubble thing, that Vainglory. Have you got that, dear?
Yeah, I've got that.
Oh, okay, good. I was worried. I was like, man,
that's too precious. That's too precious.
You left it, I think, the first time. Do
you want me to grab it?
Yeah, go. I don't know where it is. Because I was worried. Because I remember the first time when we had to go back from China, when COVID hit and we all went back to our home countries, you left it there. And I'm like, dude, what if we're not coming back?
I know. I was so confident we were coming back. And I don't know why. I was so fucking stupid. But we came back.
We did. We did. It was a month later and we did come back. And we were stuck there for like 8 months after. You get the jacket.
So I can get the jacket. Because it's kind of part of the story as well. So.
Yeah. So if anyone's tuning in, we're up to about 2018, 2019. Well, actually, I need a time from Munchables. Thank you, everyone. We're going to use this as a merch placement. ! merch in Twitch. Also, note that my link tree's in here as well. Selling merch, selling Fiverr. And yeah, this is a perfect time, isn't it? We need like a little banner that comes across the video that just gives you the links as well. That would be nice. And I'm going to use this time to drink water as well. But yeah, we're selling merch. More designs are coming as well. Things are going great. There we go. Wow.
So I've got my Patagonia on, but the important thing. Sorry, am I interrupting? Were you?
No. I'm waiting for you.
So this logo is not the important thing. These logos are the important thing.
Oh.
Because these were custom embroidered for the event. There were only 8 of these in the entire world.
Wow.
Not the Patagonias, just these ones with the logos on.
Yeah.
Because it was this is the first time that Vainglory had worked with ESL as well. So it was a big deal for us, but it was also a big deal for Vainglory because they'd done all of their broadcasts in-house. They'd copied what Riot does, right?
Okay.
And they were like, well, maybe we can work with specialists, right? And so it was like this perfect meeting of the minds where ESL UK really needed to do a banger event so that they could prove themselves. And Vainglory wanted a banger event because first off, it was their big finals for the year. But second off, it was also like them testing whether or not working with a third-party company would be good for the game and for the broadcast. So it was like huge amount of pressure on this event going well. And I was doing it as the desk host, not as a commentator.
Ah.
So I came into this event. I was playing the shit out of Vainglory all day, every day. I was like researching all the players and all of this stuff. Event goes on. It's a smash hit. Like there was a few tech hiccups and stuff, but generally speaking, it
Always
was massively
right?
successful.
Yeah.
They were super happy with it. And at the after party for the event, so that this coat that I got is like to celebrate that event, basically. And it wasn't actually for me. It was basically, you remember my roommate that I said that was talent manager at IEN?
Oh yeah.
Well, he was the product manager for this entire event. So it was a big deal for him. He was like stressed out of his mind leading up to this event.
Yeah.
And he gave me that as like a parting gift when we left that apartment, because to him it was like a token of I did a good job on this event. But to me, that event was like a turning point in my career, because I then went and followed Vainglory. I kind of abandoned League of Legends and Counter-Strike for a bit and followed Vainglory. So he was like, you have this coat because it means more to you than it does to me. And like that, I'm going to keep this coat forever.
Yeah. That's nice. That's so nice. What year? What, like, give us a timeline as well. Like, you followed Vainglory for how long? Because
2 years.
So up till what? Is this 2019? Up until it leads us to, or are we like just the end of 2019?
What year is it?
It's 2021 now.
So this would be 2018.
Okay.
Or maybe the end of 2017.
Now,
and basically, yeah, go on.
I was going to tangent. If anyone doesn't know what Vainglory is like mobile legal. Is it mobile League of Legends? Is that what Vainglory is? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was 3v3 at the time. They transitioned it to being 5v5. 5v5 kind of sucked, so the game died.
Oh no.
They should have just made 5v5 a game mode instead of trying to replace 3v3, because 3v3 was lit.
Sound more intimate experience. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
So okay, so 2018. Now, work us through there, because if you followed Vainglory for a while, like I know that feeling of like seeing one game and being like, oh man, you know, like I can do so much with this. Is it Vainglory that died that made you be like, all right, I have to move back, I have to change?
Yeah. So basically, there's kind of two separate moves for Vainglory. So there's the first one. That event finishes at the after party of that event. There's this American guy that was working on the event. So there's two important characters here at play. Both of them work for ESL. Both of them work at the American office of ESL. And so this Vainglory event has been like somewhat brokered with ESL North America, because they needed a partnership with Vainglory. They wanted to like build a partnership with Vainglory. They didn't have the staff and time to run this event. So they were like, hey, UK office, you do this event, make ESL look good. So in the after party, they're obviously, these two guys are like sales guys for ESL, like not like low tier sales. You know, sales in esports and sales, what you think of typically as a sales job, not the same thing. It's like business development. Sorry, not sales. Sorry to any biz dev people out there. Not sales, not biz dev.
Business development. Yeah.
But yeah, they so they're trying to sweet talk Vainglory into signing like a 2-year deal or whatever. And basically they're like kind of like trying to get me involved in the conversations to help sell this game, to try and help sell ESL to thing. And then one of them comes up to me. He's a guy called Sean Clark. Not Sean Clark, Sean Charles. Sean Clark is a different Sean who also works in the North American office. Apollo, the StarCraft 2 commentator, by the way. Legend. Okay. Really nice guy. Anyway, God, sorry.
You're right.
Yeah, so Sean Charles kind of sidles over to me and he goes, how would you like to live in LA? Like, what 26-year-old says no to that?
Yeah.
Right? I'm just like a single 26-year-old. I have basically nothing tying me to the UK. He's gone, hey, this game fucking loves your hosting. do you want to come and live in LA for 6 months
Wow.
and host this game? Which to me, he's basically saying, do you want to be the Dash of Vainglory?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to be the Dash of Vainglory. Are you kidding me? Like, I'd be fucking crazy to say no to that.
Wow.
So I went and lived in LA for, I think it was like 7-8 months. No, it must have been 6 months because visas.
True.
So did two splits there, and then we went to Singapore to do the World Championship. So while I was in LA, I was working at the ESL North American office, which was pretty cool. Met a lot of cool people there, and then went to went to Singapore to do the World's Finals, where they announced Vainglory 5v5. It was all very exciting. It was a big marketing thing. And I was the desk host for World's Finals in Singapore. Not only that, I was the desk host for this like essentially keynote that they were doing of like how 5v5 was going to be the best and all of this shit, right? So it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And I was a big part of like helping build the run of show for all of that, because they didn't really have much experience of doing like high-end shows, and I'd obviously worked on a lot of shows at this point.
Yeah.
So I'd built a really good reputation with Vainglory of being not just the host, but also helping build these shows. I was working as a producer on the show. So because I was ESL full-time, while I was at the office, I was helping build the show for the weekend. Then on the weekend, the analysts and commentators would come in and I would give them the lowdown. So I was kind of acting as sort of a host, producer, talent lead type role within
which is very common. I gotta say, if anyone doesn't know, like ESL, a lot of the time, like you hold I don't know what the terminology is, but you do many jobs. I don't know, something about holding a multi-sided stick or something. But
yeah,
like I remember, I was casting, just tangent, I was also casting with ESL in like 2015, 2016. But I also taped down a bucket load of tape. Like I did 80-hour weeks setting up OPL finals 2015, 2016, one in Sydney, one in Brisbane, in Queensland. And then I also drove like production crew members and like some of the big wigs like from the airport to the place as well. It's like you work with ESL, you do many different jobs.
There's just not enough people. We got to get shit done. That's
Take it to Casper. Wear many different hats. Sorry to interrupt. So you also produce and you also hosting this event. So you're doing a bucket load of things.
Yeah. So I'm working flat out. Like just Vainglory is everything that I do. When I'm not working, I'm trying to stream Vainglory and trying to build my channel a little bit.
Yep.
And at this point, I've done a year of Vainglory that's been really, really good. Like I'm earning more money than I was, because the way ESL worked, which in hindsight is really brutal, you would get your base salary, and then any extra gigs you got, you would get 50% of the rate that they charge. So ESL was making just pure profit on me doing gigs. Yeah. Like literally just taking 50% of the rate. Yeah. Which they didn't really have to do fucking anything to earn. Because I was getting all of these gigs myself. It's not like most of these gigs I had to go and get myself, and then they would just take off the rate. So they were taking an agency fee without really being much of an agency. Yeah. But even with that, even with them taking half of it, I was still earning more, because this all counted as a like essentially non-UK office gig. Anything that wasn't like UK office or ESL themselves running, like ESL Pro Leagues didn't count because that was ESL running the event, right? Whereas this was a white label event, which means ESL is running it, but nobody knows ESL is running it. Everyone thinks it's Vainglory running Vainglory, right? And so I was earning extra money, so I was over the moon. I wasn't earning that much more extra money, but beggars can't be choosers.
That's right. Something.
And anyway, it had been a successful year. I go back to the UK, and we have a bit of like an off season for Vainglory, and there is talks that next year is going to be like 5v5 only, for Pro League. It's all transitioning to 5v5. 5v5 is going to be the big new game mode. So I'm playing the shit out of 5v5. I do some random freelance gigs in other mobile games because mobile esports is kind of like a really small, tight bubble. So there's a ton of money and a ton of stuff going on in mobile esports, but there's a lot of crossover between. So I did some Clash Royale stuff, and I went to China to do an event with Excoundrel where we did Rules of Survival, which is a game nobody's ever heard of and nobody ever will hear of again. But they ran a world final 2 months after the game came out.
I know, because I've heard of that.
It was like 20% of the players at this event were just Vainglory players that were like, hey, a mobile game that's giving away a shitload of money.
Yeah.
We're good at mobile games. Let's go take this money. Right?
Yeah.
And, so there was like one of the Vainglory teams that played in the Vainglory 8, which is like the Pro League, got like second place at this event or something. It just got a paycheck. And me and Excoundrel are there like, let's go Vainglory, lads. And it was like, I don't know, there was just these random Asian marketing companies that have no fucking idea how much these things cost and how much to pay for things. So basically, we got given this by a friend who worked at Vainglory, and he basically said, look, they ain't got a clue about esports. Just pitch them as much as you want, and they'll haggle you down. But just go really high because they ain't got a fucking clue. So we pitched so ridiculously high, and then they just said yes. And we're like, we should have gone higher. Oh God, we are listening. This is free money.
Holy shit!
It was mental. Anyway, fast forward. Off season's done. I'm offered a job now in North America because Vainglory is leaving ESL. A guy called David Lee, who was my boss and a friend of mine, he worked at ESL with me. He was the reason that ESL had Vainglory in the first place. He's left ESL. He's joined a new company called ESP Gaming, which is a new production company operating out of Las Vegas. And Vainglory, the only reason they were with ESL was because they trusted him. So they're going with him to this new company.
Right.
And he basically says, hey, I want you to still host all of the Vainglory Pro stuff. You were a host and producer at ESL. I'd like you to be host and producer for ESP instead. We'll get you a visa. We'll fly you out and pay you to be a producer and a host. And I was like, sick. That sounds fucking awesome. But that was the point where it was no longer ESL, right? So this was like the second time I'm leaving. The first time I was leaving to LA, but I was still ESL and I was still contracted to the UK office. I still had a flat in Leicester because I was in a lease. I couldn't just get out of my lease. I was coming back. So it was like, that was like a long holiday. Whereas this one was like, okay, I actually have to commit here. I'm leaving ESL. I will no longer do League of Legends. I will be a Vainglory commentator. This is it. This is me stepping away from League of Legends. This is me stepping away from Counter-Strike, from Hearthstone, from all these other games that I've committed a lot of time and effort into. So this one was a much bigger deal. And I obviously said yes.
Of course.
There was a lot of visa issues because nobody's ever heard of esports. And this is like 2019. So at the start, I was meant to move out in March of 2019, and I didn't get out there until like, I think May or June, just because of back and forth with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But eventually, I managed to get out there. The problem is, Pro League still hasn't started, and it was meant to start about 2 or 3 months prior to this. And I get out there, and it's like, it's still not really happening. And there's been a couple of like little invitational events that they've run, but it keeps on getting postponed. And there's a lot of rumors that shit's kicking off and all of this. And so I go there and we do some random invitational events. So it's like some pros versus top solo queue players and this kind of thing. And it's all like, it's fine, but it's, a bit scuffed, a bit shitty. It's not pro, right? It's show matches. And we're kind of like I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning a shitload because the guys I'm working with have worked at Fox for years. Like the guy that was like my main sort of so there was 2 of us that were like producers.
Yep.
And then there was one that was an executive producer.
Right.
So this guy's called Loy, and this guy's called Mike.
Yep.
So me and Mike are at a similar level, which towards the end when I was leaving, like realistically, he was far more experienced than I was as a producer.
Yeah.
So realistically, I was more of like a secondary producer. I wasn't like a assistant or associate producer, but I was definitely
But you're
secondary to
still
Mike.
you're still doing both at this time though, right? Like you're still like hosting this invitationals that would come through. Or...
Yeah. And so I'm doing a lot of the producing because I'm the guy that knows the game. So
Yeah.
basically, the setup is we've got an exec producer this guy had worked on the Super Bowl. This guy was like 20 years of Fox Sports. This guy was like a hot shot, knows fucking everything about television, or at least about sports television. And I learned a shitload from him. And I feel like my understanding of how and why TV is the way that TV is, like, times a million during the time that I was over there. And so I was working with him and Mike, and, you know, I was working basically 24/7 because I was the only one that knew the game. And it really mattered to me that these events were successful because it mattered to me that Vainglory succeeded, right? Because I just committed basically my life to Vainglory being successful.
True.
So I'd moved over to Vegas. The signs weren't looking good. It's about 3 months into my time in Vegas, and basically there's a big announcement that Vainglory's fucked. It's not happening. We're not doing a pro league.
Oh no.
For whatever reason, pro league has been like indefinitely postponed.
Yeah.
We will return to this topic kind of situation where they're like, don't worry, it'll come back, but just not right now, okay? Which is like, fuck. So I'm like now living in Las Vegas.
Mm.
I'm on a permanent contract. Like the intention was to stay in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Like when I moved out there, it was not like, let's see how this goes. It was like, I'm moving to Las Vegas. I'm going to live in America now. I'm going to get a green card eventually. And, you know, it was like the goal was emigration, not just the year that I spent.
Yeah.
But basically, because Vainglory fell apart, I ended up working on a lot of random games and events, just like in every sports company, right? But I slowly but surely transitioned away from doing hosting because, I mean, we were just doing random games. And these were big budget events as well. It was an event series called the WSOE, which if you go, it's all on YouTube and stuff. We were doing some fucking expensive events. And this was all being broadcast out of a poker TV studio at the Aria Resort in Las Vegas on the Strip.
They're really fancy. Like, they look really good. Because the camera setup's always
Aria,
beautiful there as well.
The Aria is fucking nice.
Yeah.
If you can get a room at the Aria, fucking go for it. Because for me, it's a real nice place.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever pay that much. But yeah, you know, if you're into spending a lot of money on that kind of shit, go for it.
Yeah, do it.
But I was working. I'm one of the people that's had a fucking card to go through the underbowels of Las Vegas. There's a series of tunnels throughout the bottom of Las Vegas where you can go between the casinos and stuff for staff, which felt very exclusive.
Oh yeah.
So that was cool, but yeah. Anyway, Shithop Productions, basically, they didn't really have space for some dude that worked on Vainglory that realistically, in the eyes of like my boss, not Dave. So David was my boss, who ultimately could decide if I had a job, etc. But Loy was my, you know, the line manager, I guess.
Yeah.
And in his eyes, like this guy's worked with literally the pros on Fox Sports. So in his eyes, I have pretty much zero experience. Which, you know, like comparatively to people that have been working in the industry for 30 years, I really don't. Nowadays I probably do, but not back then. And so I kind of got relegated to doing a lot of producing. I actually produced, I was the lead graphics producer on a Dota event.
Wow.
Which I had to set up an entire like draft overlay and everything.
Oh,
I had to set up an API system so that when a champion was locked in draft, basically Dota doesn't say the name of the champion. And Loy was adamant that we needed to have the names of the champions as well as the pictures in case anyone that didn't know Dota was watching. which I try to explain. Like, if anyone that doesn't know Dota is watching, they're gonna click off because you can't fucking watch Dota if you don't know what's going on. But
it's harder than
basically,
League. Yeah.
It was like my job was to build a graphics package not only for the Dota tournament, but then also build essentially like a graphics package that was a bridge between new viewers and Dota. So I built this API system for the draft. Well, I didn't build it, but I, found people that could build an API system and begged them to work faster because it almost didn't work. And like I had to build a whole bunch of like essentially tips and tricks pop-ups that would explain how the fucking game works and like all this other random. There was a ton of random stuff, and then there was like we would get the players to film in front of a green screen or whatever and do a cool pose. So that we could be like, this was not my idea. So that when someone got an ace or whatever or a double kill, their little thing would pop in and go.
I don't mind that. That's cool, dude. If we did that in League, really imagine like Doomby comes up and Doomby's dancing when he gets a pentakill.
Yeah, it was. That'd be cool. It was super cheesy. But it was cool. And hey, I got it done. That was the most important thing. Nice. It was like a really successful event for me because all of the previous events I'd done, honestly, it was like trial by fire. It was really fucking hard. I was working 24/7. And realistically, I just didn't have the experience. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was winging it. And I was like scraping by the seat of my pants. And this Dota event, I fucking nailed it. Nice. And I was like, shit, maybe I actually can do this producing stuff. But we got to the end of the year, and basically, there's some important context here in the story that basically Loy and I'll give you the political way of saying this. Yeah. Loy and I had some creative differences. In how our shows should be run, and in a lot of things, honestly.
All right.
And so we get to the end of the year and we have... So I don't need to give context to everything. This is my problem. I give too much context.
But that's okay. It's a nice timeline. Like, take your time. It's all good. I'm even thinking, we don't have to get through it all today. I'm probably going to make it into parts and bring you back on for the second part.
Yeah, I'm easy.
Yeah, but sorry, go on.
So basically, OGN, the Korean broadcast company, is opening a studio in Los Angeles. I don't know if it's still open or not. I want to say that it closed, but I'm not 100% sure. But basically, their studio is not ready anywhere near as soon as they need it to be. They have a quota from the Korean office because it's essentially... It's almost like a franchise.
Yeah.
Not quite, but like they're essentially being given orders by the Korean office that they need to meet. And they have a quota of how much money they needed to earn by the end of this year. They are not earning that money because the studio is not fucking open yet. And so they make a deal with us where it's like, hey, we'll pay you to run 3 events in your studio in the month of December because that's the only month of this year that it's going to be open. And then you give us a shitload of content to do after the new year, basically. That's the deal. So we go over there and we do this like grueling 3-event week or a couple of weeks or month. Sorry, what am I saying? It was a month. And it's over December. And we do a Hearthstone WSOE, which WSOE was our idea of like IEM, basically. Yeah. So we run a Hearthstone event for which I'm actually a member of talent on this one. I'm doing this like Asus control center thing where basically we have so many games going on and not enough time that we don't broadcast every game. And so between every game, they come over to me, who is watching all of the other games that are going on, and giving updates on like the standings and what cool things happen during these games. And I've got like, we set this thing up with a bunch of Asus monitors because they were the sponsor for the segment. Yeah. And I had like essentially a command center where I had a bunch of monitors where I was watching all of these different games and like keeping tabs on it all, which is pretty fun to do.
That's so confusing though. That's scary.
It was sick. It was. I mean, it was super low stakes because ultimately, it was just a sponsor segment. It was not like no one in the production room gave a shit really what I said because none of them understood Hearthstone at all. So for the audience, I was obviously trying my best to do a good job of catching everyone up on what was going on, but my segment was 30 seconds long. Like, how much context can you really give about all of these different Hearthstone games in 30 seconds, right? Like, you fucking can't. So, it was just like a meme segment, really. But I was working talent again, which was nice. But I was producing leading up to that. We were making like a cold open and like basically there was a shitload of content that we had to make for every single event we did. So there's a lot of stuff leading up to the event to work on. So I was producing all of that stuff and then working talent for that one. And then we did a Fortnite event as well, which we were the first company to run a non-Epic Games Fortnite event. We were the first ones to do it. Because it was at the OGN studio, we kind of had a bit of extra sway there. And so I, hilariously, am one of the few people in the world that has the ability to run custom games in Fortnite. Because we just needed accounts that could run games. We just needed
what, you still got that account, or?
Yeah, like... so my Epic account can run Fortnite custom games, which only like big YouTubers and stuff get, basically.
Right.
So I've got a cool Fortnite account.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
And I've also got a dinosaur costume on Fortnite.
No.
So I would say the second one is probably the bigger cool thing, really.
So you're going to start Fortnite streaming soon, obviously.
Yeah.
Start getting into that, yeah. Good.
I was pretty good. I was pretty good.
Until people started until building became, I don't know how
pretty much, yeah. I'm just good at shooting. And I got okay at, I can do 90s and stuff, but I'm no pro.
No.
But I lived with a Fortnite semi-pro. I lived with a guy when I was living in Vegas. My friend, that he was a Vainglory pro, he started grinding Fortnite like crazy, and he was on TSM for Vainglory. So his handle said TSM Hammy, and he was streaming Fortnite. So everyone was like, "Oh, it's a TSM Fortnite player." So he got loads of viewers really quickly because he was a TSM player and he was playing Fortnite. He just wasn't a TSM player because he was playing Fortnite. So I got some personal coaching from a TSM player playing Fortnite.
Important context,
Anyway, yeah. So we run these 3 events. There's a Fortnite event, a Hearthstone event, and finally there's a Vainglory event. And this is, well, while we didn't necessarily know it at the time, we all kind of knew it. This was the final Vainglory event, basically. And I got to commentate it, which was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Because I'd basically not really commentated Vainglory before, aside from a couple of random gigs, like random one-off events. And at that event, I finally earned, or at least within reason, earned Loy's respect. Because up until that point, I'd basically been like the gamer guy at the company that, realistically, do we need him? He's not got that much experience producing. Like, you know, I'd been like struggling to keep on top of my shit for a lot of the time that I was at ESP, especially the first half of the year that I was there. And I think he'd been angling to try and get me out of the company, to be quite honest, early on, because to be honest, he kind of resented esports. He didn't like esports. He was there because he thought it was the next big thing. Or at least that's my speculation. And at that event, I did commentary for the finals, and he said, you know, desk hosting, you're like a Mazda, right? You're a pretty nice car. You can go pretty fast, but you know, it's whatever. It's not, you're not blowing anyone's socks off. Commentary, you're a fucking Ferrari. Why the fuck didn't you tell me that you can commentate like this before? And I was like, remember that this guy, basically, we've never got on. The entire time I've been at this company, I've basically got the impression that he fucking hates me. And then he gives me that as a compliment. I'm like,
shit, that's genuine.
Like, shit, you're right.
Yeah.
Why the fuck am I producing right now? And that kind of sowed the seed that then over the next sort of 5 months or so, I consistently thought about, like, I'm doing okay as a producer, and at this point, I felt like I was getting pretty good. Like, I felt like sort of finally got the hang of it. I knew the workflow. I knew how it all worked. I knew how to talk to people to get them to help you out. And like,
Yeah.
you know, I was ticking the boxes. I'd made friends with all the graphics people that I needed to get on side. I'd made friends with everyone that I needed. Like, there's a lot of like people management in producing, and I felt like I'd finally got all of that down. And the problem was, like, even though I was finally getting good at it, it felt like once I did that Dota event and succeeded there, that was the last event I did, because it was like, I've done it. I've got it. I've cracked this now. Like,
Yeah.
I could probably continue producing. I could probably make a career out of producing, but actually, this is not what I want to do. This is not why I'm here. I came here to be the host, right? Vainglory's fucking dead.
Yeah.
And I got a little taste of that commentary again at that Vainglory final, and I was like, fuck, man, I've got to... Like, how many people in the world get to say that they can chase the dream of commentating full-time in esports?
Not many.
Like, fucking barely anyone.
Yep.
Like 0.1% of the world's population or something, right? So I was like, I'd be a fucking idiot not to at least try that. So that was the moment where I was like, all right, fuck this. I'm going back home. I'm going to go and try it on for freelance.
Right. So freelance,
that was the end of America.
Yeah. So America finishes there. You've lived in LA, you've gone back, and then you lived in fucking Las Vegas. You've even been through the underground tunnels. Which is, you know, I mean, I don't know Las Vegas, but hell, that's fucking exclusive. More exclusive than the Aria. And then you come back home, and now how many months between this and like your LPL interview? Because I know for a fact that I'm pretty sure they're in contact with you later in 2019. At that time in 2019, it was just me, Clement, Raz. We had Niberia, who his voice cut out, so he was essentially like there, but not there, unfortunately. And then Asheen or Penguin came on board for like the last 5-6 weeks of LPL Summer 2019. So like he did a little bit. What's the time gap here? How many months between you coming back and starting to freelance and be like, I want to commentate, to then, you know, going for an LPL interview or however that came about?
So miraculously, it was only 6 months. Which, you know, optimistically, I could say that's just how fucking good I am. But realistically, that was very lucky and very circumstantial. Basically, I came back and I managed to get a few gigs very early on, just because I worked at ESL before, right? So I was still friends with all those guys. That was still an office that was operating regularly. So I got some good work there. I actually casted Magic the Gathering Arena with them, which was really cool.
Wow.
Because I've done a lot of Hearthstone stuff. I've played Magic casually over the years. So that was really fun to do. But I just did a bunch of random gigs, basically. And then it was... I forget exactly the timeline on how I got into LPL. I think it was... so Fun Plus Esports, not to be confused with Fun Plus Phoenix, same company, but they essentially have a production company, or at least did. I don't know if they still do. I think they still do, though.
I'm pretty sure they still do.
Basically, they were looking for a commentator, and so one of the guys there used to work in Clash Royale, and so I knew him through mobile esports. Like I said, mobile esports is a very small world. And he messaged me like, hey, you should apply for this. Hey, also, by the way, I think LPL are looking for commentators as well. So I know you're a league commentator. You should reach out to Clement Chu. Is this
sorry to interject, is this Opal? You know, talking about Opal, because I know Fun Plus at the time. Fun Plus at the time, I know, like, at some point, I think Fish was working with them, who used to do LPL. Opal was there as well. I'm not sure.
So I think Opal got the job that he'd originally been talking about to me. So I think that was when Opal joined FPX, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know.
Somewhere around there. I remember 2019 that there was a crew
yeah,
there.
Anyway. Yeah. So that I basically I'd got asked about that, and then also asked about. Basically, he said, "Hey, if this doesn't work out, which who knows, you should message Clement and ask about LPL because apparently they're hiring." So I can't remember how or why Clement already followed me on Twitter, and I already followed him. I think he'd done like interviews at IEM or something. I don't think I'd ever actually met him, but I don't know. Maybe he'd see me at IEM or something. Either way, luckily for me, I can DM Clement. That's the key thing here.
Yeah.
I'm not just bragging that Clement follows me. Hey, Clement follows me.
Clement follows you.
But I could DM him. That's the crucial thing. So I DM him on Twitter, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm a freelance commentator. I've been working in League for, I don't know, what is it, 5 years at this point. Let me try it for the LPL kind of thing." So we go through an interview process, and he asks me like, who's my favorite player in the LPL that's not on FPX, because it's just after Worlds is finished. And I'm like, I'm gonna be real with you, bro. I don't fucking know. I don't really watch the LPL. I didn't have time to watch a shitload of LPL.
I'm listening to all these interviews. Like I'm in office, and I remember like I wasn't like there listening to the interviews. Like Clement was doing them. I think Raz as well was like sometimes overseeing them. But I was getting the feedback, and like for anyone out there wondering, if you bullshit through an interview, like, and people find out, they fucking hate that. And not even if they don't find out, if you try and act like you know something and you don't, like, they hate that. And Clement was like, he was honest. He just said he didn't like, he didn't watch LPL. It's like, that honesty is better than trying to be like, I like fucking Jay from Vici Gaming because he's such a good mid laner. Where it's like, he's actually a trash bag, and you don't watch it. You just looked at Wikipedia. Yeah, don't lie. Don't lie 100%. But go on. So you told Clement the truth, and I'm sure he somewhat appreciated that. Well, I know he did.
Yeah, I think so. And basically, we talked about my actual experience, right? The fact that I'd done a lot of producing, the fact that I'd done a lot of League of Legends commentary, the fact that I'd already cast International League as well, I think was helpful. And then for the next interview, I actually had watched a bit of LPL, and I'd done a bit of research, right? And I basically pitched an idea of how I was going to... Basically, the big question in that one was like, how are you going to keep up with this league? There are 17 teams. Like, how are you going to stay on top of this? How are you going to get to know all of the teams before the season starts, etc.? And that was the big question for me. And I basically explained how I was going to keep on top of it all. And that's basically how I got the job.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, I mean, other than that, it was, it's an interview process. There's not that much, that much frills to it. But yeah, so then he offered me a job, and I was like, fuck yeah. Take me to the LPL, baby.
Hell yeah. And that was...
Flew away to China.
I know. And at that point, I mean, you've already like... Because when was the starting point we started this story? Was it 2015? Do we start all the way back at 2015? Or was it before that? Because that's...
Yeah, so I think technically 2014 was when I first started doing like voluntary and stuff.
Yeah.
And then 2015 was my first ever like gig.
Which is crazy, right? Like, I mean, we both started the same year, essentially. I mean, I started 2015. That's when I first, I got Challenger Series, which was my first ever cast. I was lucky to get thrown as well into paid work. And it was League of Legends. But I think the biggest thing is you've progressed in, let's say, 7 years. Let's say like 7 years worth of work, and leading up to this point where it's a full-time casting role. It's not like, you don't have multiple hats like you would at ESL, which is not, I don't think is a bad thing. I think you learn a lot from that, but you've progressed to the point where you're not, I
can specialize now.
You can specialize. Great. Yes. Great word. You can specialize, and what you're here to do is like cast, and you're getting paid, a salary for just casting, and like, look, we can say, content on the side and all that kind of stuff, but you are getting the salary to be there, to be an LPL caster and like do what you do best, which I think is kind of an amazing story, because it's taken 7 years. It's taken you living in, in Los Angeles, in Vegas, jumping back and forth from the UK. You've been to China before for an event. which ROS, Rules of Survival, something that FPX actually also did, I think in 2019. They were still doing it. That's why I know the name of it, which is quite interesting. You've been all over Europe because of your work as well. I think it's just kind of amazing to look at your career and see like all the tracks you've built, all the connections you've built up as well. Because that's another thing, right? You obviously have really good relations with good relationships with people from ESL, like people all across the world, because you've done all those events for them, because you've helped them out, because you had that time where you specialized in Vainglory, and you kind of showed your expertise across that game and other games too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I like, honestly, it has been a long and winding journey.
Yeah.
And at the start, if you'd asked me, do I want to spend 7 years before I get on a major region in League of Legends, I would have absolutely told you no. But I think I am a much better person for the job because of the 7 years that I spent going through all of these different roles in esports and doing all this random shit.
Yeah.
Like, the goal was to survive within esports for a lot of it, right?
Which can be
the
hard.
ultimate goal was like become the best commentator to ever live.
Yeah.
But like the realistic goal was like have a job in esports for another year for a lot of this. So progressing in that was fucking awesome. Being able to progress in that, the fact that esports continued to exist was fucking awesome, because like 5 years ago there was a lot of talk that this was all just a bubble that was about to collapse, right? Still is some of that talk. So like every year of this was already like an achievement in my eyes, and the fact that it's been able to progress to this point, and I've been able to turn it into not just doing whatever I need to do esports, but instead actually having a career that I'm proud of and that I'm excited to pursue is fucking amazing. So yeah,
I mean, you're in one of the
biggest... turbulent journey, but I'm happy with it.
And you've ended up in one of the biggest the biggest esport, right? I mean, you could argue, like, I know CSGO is still huge. I know Valorant's growing at a pretty fast pace as well.
And in the best region too, get fucked down one.
Yeah, all right. Well, the two teams are going to knock each other out. I mean, we're only going to have one into the semi-finals, but at least we have a region in the semi-finals. We're fucked. And then we lose to Cloud9. But coming back to it, like, because I think for this episode, and I do like that we've kind of expanded on your past and like who you are as a caster as well. I want to do another part with you down the track, just looking maybe more at the role and like from your experience. So we will do this in parts, which I haven't done before, which is kind of exciting. I want to stay more on you for this episode though, and I want to look more at like your takeaways from the games you've casted and how it influences League of Legends. Because with the multiple titles, do you know how many titles you've casted? Like, do you have a list? Do you have a number for me?
Of like just random games that I've commentated?
Different games. It doesn't matter if it's a one-off, like games that you've commentated, because I know you're a prepper. You are like, your casting style, like your prep, I think has hit like such a great point. So give me a number of titles, because they've got to influence you in some way.
So I've not written it all down. I don't have a definitive list, but there is a lot. Because all of these different games comms I did each had like 14 games. Hey, random tangent. It is relevant. It is relevant.
That's all right.
I cast Arena of Valor where Cyanide and Yellow Star were playing.
Wow.
That's pretty fucking cool.
That's cool.
Just
got a lot of cool moments like that.
That's the whole story. There are more stories from that event, but not ones that I want to tell on the internet. That's a story we can have. We can have that chat over a pint.
True. Maybe bevies one day. Get Yellow Star and bevies with the boys.
Again, not a story I want to tell on the internet. So different show doesn't really necessarily help that one.
All right, that's true.
But yeah, so I've cast League of Legends, obviously. I've cast Arena of Valor. I've cast Vainglory. Those are the 3 MOBAs I've done, I guess. I've cast Guild Wars 2, Counter-Strike, Battlefield 4,
Okay.
Rocket League,
Nice.
Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering Arena. I cast Lawbreakers. I cast Splatoon. I've cast. There was some anime fighting game that I can't for the life of me remember the name of because it was fucking shit.
Yep.
There's a good 8 or so games that I've commentated at Gamescom or whatever that cease to exist immediately in my mind, and I will never remember the names of. But there's like a bonus selection there of like shit games, basically. Rainbow Six Siege, I was one of the first ever commentators on.
True,
which is exciting. What else have I commentated? Clash Royale, I've commentated. That might be it. I don't think it is it, but my memory is fucking garbage.
I mean, we're past. Let's just say 15 plus, right? Because it's a lot. I mean,
I would
plus all
say
the multiple.
I would say it's minimum 20. Minimum 20. I would if I had to stab in the dark, I would say it's probably like 27 or something like that.
Do you feel
it's a lot?
Do you feel like you've taken anything away from those games that's like influenced you now as a caster? Because I'll give you an example. I mean, I used to do Gfinity Rocket League when they came to Australia. They only spent a year in Australia and then they kind of went bust. I did Gfinity. It's
just like in the UK, but they got investors.
Yeah, that's true.
Got them.
We don't have enough.
That's right. ESL UK represent. Get fucked, Gfinity.
Oh,
I take that back. Gfinity, if you've got any gigs going, I'm a freelancer. Hit me up. My email's in my Twitter bio.
Gfinity were great. I did that for a year. I did it. There was in a Hoyt cinema. I don't know if do you have Hoyts in the UK? Is that a thing? I don't know if it's a global thing. Hoyts is like, it's a cinema chain, at least in Australia. I don't know how far it goes.
Okay.
We're in there, like the arena was set up. They had 3 different games. They had CSGO, they had Street Fighter, and they had Rocket League. And it was broadcast to a sports TV channel in Australia, as well as on Twitch. From Rocket League, like it's a very different pace to League of Legends. I know you cast Rocket League and it's like it is, I'd say at times it can be more fun. Like it's more powerful. Like you got to keep on your toes a little bit as well. It's a very different pace. And I feel like I took away like the power of dead air and build up, and like I took a lot of technical things away from that and I applied it to League of Legends. And I think it actually made me a stronger play-by-play as well. So with that example, like, is there anything that you've taken away from any game you've casted that you feel like you employ well in League of Legends, or has like helped you get to this point in your career as a caster?
Yeah, definitely. So a game I forgot to mention before is I cast a lot of Overwatch when that first came out. I cast a lot in the beta, and I cast a lot. I cast basically all of the UK Overwatch shit that was going on,
right?
Until Overwatch were like, "Hey, DMCA, anyone that wants to build a community in our game." Great strategy, Blizzard. So I think Overwatch I took a lot from, because stylistically it's relatively similar to League of Legends in some ways. So when you're casting Overwatch, it's faster pace than League of Legends, and unless you're in LPL, there's fights more often than there is in League of Legends.
Yeah,
like the fights are longer and more sort of consistent in Overwatch.
Yeah,
but at the higher tiers, it's like 6v6 break, 6v6 break, 6v6 break. Just like League of Legends is 5v5 break, 5v in the late game, right? So there was a lot of like learning how to change pacing to transition from League of Legends into Overwatch, which obviously in the short term helped me cast Overwatch, but in the long term helped me understand how pacing works and why different pacing applies to different games, right? And so I also cast Hearthstone, which is the total opposite end of that scale, right? Where it is very low key, and you do have to inject energy because otherwise the game is really boring. If the commentators are boring in Hearthstone, it's miserable.
Yeah.
So Hearthstone, you really have to bring out your own personality and try and be funny, try and crack some jokes and like have fun with it, because a lot of the matchups, a lot of the time in Hearthstone, the meta's pretty set, and most of the viewers are kind of hardcore Hearthstone viewers. So you're appealing to a hardcore audience. You have to know the decks really well, and you have to know the matchup really well, because all of the audience does too, which means like talking about the basics of interactions isn't particularly good for Hearthstone. So you then have to dig deeper than that. You have to talk, like, you have to podcast it and converse with your commentator, and like obviously keep up with the game, but especially in a control matchup, the early game, like if you got 2 control warriors, you don't say anything about the game for like the first 8 turns because they just don't fucking matter. Like most of the time, they're just burning cards. They'll pick the card that is least valuable in their hand and they'll burn it just so that they don't mulligan an important card. Not mulligan, mill an important card.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to kind of podcast with Hearthstone. Like you say, Rocket League, much faster pace. Things like Battlefield as well is just constant shooting. Every second of that game is shooting. So that was like really, really high pace. Keeping action up. I think one of the biggest things I learned, though, from just doing events and just being around different developers, being around different audiences and things, is that people just love hype. Like, most people are not listening to what you are saying. But when the shit goes down and you go, exciting, they go, wow, this guy's really good.
Yeah.
So one of the things I learned while being a freelancer and while working at ESL trying to get gigs was, hey, when shit happens, fucking yell about it. Because people like that. And that's one of the things that Medic was always way better than me at in the UK scene, which is why he progressed so much faster than I did in the UK scene, because he was real fucking good at yelling. I just did not cotton on to that. I don't know how it took me so many years to cotton on to that. But turns out hype is kind of important for a blowout like Asta. Who could have seen this coming? Who could have possibly known this?
No one.
But yeah, so ultimately, I think like pacing is one of the most important lessons I learned from other games. And I guess just learning that you have to be a personality outside of just commentating the game. Because especially when you're casting games that you don't know super well, you can't lean on your game knowledge. Like in League of Legends, I can just exclusively talk about the game for the entire thing if I want to. I'm not going to do that because that's boring. But like in the UK scene, I did do that because I could. And that's how I viewed the game. And that's how I viewed what they were doing in LCS at the time, which wasn't the case, but that's how I viewed it. And that doesn't work when you don't know the game. So I had to learn to actually be more than just default commentator I had to learn how to develop a personality. And I think that's one of the most valuable things you can do as on-air talent.
And I mean, I think like knowing from, working with you now for 2 years, like seeing you for the start of 2020 when you came in, where, you like, I'm not saying you didn't have a personality, but to now where you can see like you're more comfortable in your own skin, you're more comfortable in that personality. Doing one game as well has obviously helped where we're looking at League of Legends, especially in LPL. I mean, I was DMing Medic about this the other day and having a chat about it. Like, it was really hard to do anything else because we're doing 7 days a week of League of Legends. And sure, like we take a day off here or there, but we still ultimately come back to those games of League and look at them because we end up casting the teams that were playing them. And I feel like that's also made it a lot easier for us to be like, like work on different things, like, like the personality trait, or come back to the game knowledge. Because you are very comfortable with game knowledge. And I think as a play-by-play, it's great when I contrast myself to you and when you and I do development sessions. Because, I mean, you and I had a big chat towards the end of the split where heading towards playoffs, we, had our VOD sessions. And the feedback is really different, which I love. Like, me talking a lot more about hype and, how you approach your energy. And then you talking to me about like injecting narrative, how I'm in the downtime as well. I think that's, a really great part about you, which is like your casting is very different to mine and vice versa. But you as a caster right now, I think is like great with the downtime. That's why everyone loves Daggables, Dunchables. What do we end up calling it?
I think it's Daggables, yeah.
Daggables. I liked Dunchables, but people thought it sounded a little bit dirty. So I don't know what Dunchables.
I don't quite know why or how, but it does. Yeah.
But I don't know what Dunch is, but Sounds like a pretty off.
I don't want to know what Dodge is.
So you've expanded on your interests a little bit. You've told me at the games you cast and like how that's influenced you, and really really important that you have talked about things like pacing as well. I think really good for up and coming play by plays. And what you've kind of shown today is that you've consistently looked for your foot in the door. I wanted to come back to something you said earlier in your story as well, just as we get towards rounding out the show.
Sure.
Were you doing any real-time work? Real-time work. Were you doing anything like in the real world, quote unquote, like while you were trying to get up and casting? Did you say real estate? Did I hear you correctly? Were you working in real estate?
Yeah, so I was an estate agent for a year, which was fucking miserable.
Yeah.
I would not recommend that to anyone. It is soul crushing. Honestly, that is the most depressed I've ever been in my life. One day I just didn't go to work until like midday, and then I turned up, and I was meant to be like measuring a house for a floor plan or something that morning, and I basically used that as an excuse just to not go into the office.
Yeah.
And then I turned up and I was late, obviously, and I hadn't done the floor plan, and my boss just started shouting at me, and I just threw my shit on the table. I was like, I quit. Fuck you. I just walked out. And I'd gone to Subway every day for lunch. I'm a creature of habit. I like a ham sandwich. Subway does good ham sandwiches. There was one around the corner. So I just went to the same Subway every single day for lunch and had the same ham sandwich every single day for lunch. And so I'd got friendly with all the staff at Subway because you're there every day, right? And I literally just walked from the estate agents across the road to the Subway, and I was like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" And they're like, "Oh, you're here, really?" I was like, "Yeah." You got any jobs going? They were like, I mean, we're Subway, so yeah, always.
Yeah.
And so I just got a job at the Subway instead because I could just make sandwiches and just chat to people, just chill out. But also, it was a 0-hour contract. That's the magical ingredient.
Yeah.
Because with a 0-hour contract, you can just say no to shifts. And if you're good at your job, you're one of the 1% at Subway that gives a fuck.
Yeah.
So they're never going to not give you shifts if you actually try.
Yeah.
Because nobody else tries.
The 1%. So, how dare you make fun of Subway artists?
I'm telling you, like, if you just work hard at Subway, it's essentially like free unlimited holiday if you want it. Because they won't, unless you really abuse that, like, they won't stop giving you shifts because you're one of the few people that actually does the job well, right? So, so I went and worked at Subway, 0-hour contract. So I could say, hey, this weekend, I'm doing a freelance event. So it was fucking perfect. It was like low stress. I could take weekends off to do freelance work. And so I worked at Subway for like, I actually have no idea how long I worked at Subway, but it was just at least like 6 months or so.
And that was a balance for you.
Then I got the job at ESL.
That was a balance while you were doing your freelance gigs, and like obviously then you weren't getting paid, or like you're getting paid small amounts here and there, where Subway was just keeping you steady, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually going to take that title. Medora's put in chat. Joe Subway's 1% Fetty.
Good casting name. You have problem with copyright, but or trademark. Sorry, but
I'll just buy a franchise branch and then I can use the brand.
Yeah, that's true. Because when you were in real estate, were you doing events like here and there still, or was it just real off?
So I was trying to.
Yeah,
and then basically one event, my boss basically said, no, you can't. And there was not really... The problem was, it's not like we were busy.
Yeah.
There was no reason for me not to do this event, not to have the weekend off, right? I worked all the fucking time. I was the only one that worked all the time as well. Everyone else was like in and out of the office and like having holidays and shit. I never took holiday or anything because I didn't have anything going on. And like, which is why I was so miserable realistically. But
of course,
I asked for this weekend off to do an event and he said no to it, which was that was like 2 weeks before I quit, or like a week before I quit or something, which I was just like, why am I fucking here?
Yeah.
You're just gonna be an asshole. You're like literally stopping me from chasing my dream while just being a dick to me in the day. Fuck you, bro. Like seriously,
Yeah.
just go fuck yourself. So, yeah. So I left that, but I was trying to do freelance on the side while I was there, which is what was so appealing about Subway because it was like,
I respect the I respect the quit. I respect the quit, like you throwing things down and walking across the street to the subway you've always got to be like, do you have work? I mean, I think
that was maybe the most alpha day I've ever had.
Oh, absolutely. That's such an empowering moment. And I feel like, you know, the takeaway from it, for me at least, I'm not sure about everyone else, is that, you know, you were like, well, this doesn't work for me. And you kind of like took a step in the direction you wanted to go. And that enabled you to be where you are today, because that was like a good stepping stone for you as well. But you didn't, and I think this is really important as well. A lot of people see like getting into casting or like, you know, or following any dream is you quit everything else before you have anything set up and you run straight into it. Well, you quit your job, you moved to Subway, you were still getting income, you were still supporting yourself, but you also had the possibilities to go and, you know, chase events and then eventually lead up. And then when did you actually quit any work outside of esports? Like, when were you only esports income based? I think is a good follow-up question.
It was when I got my job at ESL.
Okay.
So I never, before ESL, I was never like full-time freelance.
Yeah.
I earned a little bit of money on freelance, but it was like, I mean, it was UK scene, man. Like you earn fuck all from doing UK scene. So
yeah.
Realistically, nowadays, maybe you can earn a living. I don't know. But I mean, Medic in chat can attest, you cannot earn a substantial living from UK scene freelance in 2015. Right. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So, so I had to have a job alongside it until I actually got that job at I nearly said at Subway, at ESL.
At ESL, which is smart. Yes. I mean, I think you didn't jump fully into it, which, like, I think effort wise is still fine. But if you don't have a backup, if you don't have finances, like, don't leave yourself out, and don't leave yourself out in a bad position. $75 a day.
Also, right? on that note, like, it takes a lot of time until you're getting gigs consistently enough to, even if you let's say you're getting 500 quid a day, right? Just because you got one event that paid you 500 quid a day does not mean your next 3 events are going to pay you 500 quid a day.
That's right.
Like, just because you say, I want you to pay me 500 quid a day, does not mean that company is going to pay you 500 quid a day. They're going to come back to you and go, well, our budget is 150 quid, so take it or leave it. Yeah. And what choice do you really have?
That's right.
Because they're not going to increase their pay because they literally don't have the budget. And unless you just don't want to earn money, you're taking that gig. So I would err on the side of caution, have a part-time job at very least while you're trying to build your career in esports, because it takes a long time to have enough different companies that want to work with you for it to be consistent enough that this is a easy full-time gig, you know?
I mean, I was 2015, I got my first gig, right? And then I kept trying to build up, and I did ESL events. I did OPL finals 2015, 2016 on the production side. I literally went to IKEA to buy heaters for Pastry Time's legs. Because they put them under the table. Literally, like, there was like a desk, and I had to put heaters under the table. I think Claire was there, who's pretty sure he went to Worlds the year before last. And then I think another player was up there as well, like a Swiper or a Swiffer or a big OC star on an analyst desk. Did that back end, but I was still working at a restaurant. I was still working at my family restaurant.
Is Australia really hot? Why do they need heaters?
It can be cold. No, at Luna Park, it was the middle of the year. It was like June. It was like split one, because we don't have summer and we don't have you
have opposite summer and winter.
Spring and summer, yeah. We don't have those splits. We literally have split 1 and split 2, and they still follow that with LCO. And I was working at a restaurant up until 2017. That's when I built up enough connections, and I'm like, I'm going to try freelance in 2018. But I always had somewhere to fall back on. Like, my eggs weren't all in that basket. So, I mean, I completely understand, like, having that balance until, if you make the leap, make sure you can always come back as well. But do it when you're in a very comfortable position. And it's important as well, like, looking at your story, because I think, you've got a lot of experience mixed around. I got a couple more questions before we round out. I know for you it's like midnight now, so we won't go too much further.
It's good. Honestly, I'm not in a rush. So
well, good, because I'll like, expand the questions a little bit. Before we start talking about your future and what's going on, have you thought about like your production experience? I think something important, and it's something I've noticed. Obviously, I'm not going to divulge anything like story meetings, anything that happens internally at LPL, but you've always had a really good mindset as to how the show looks, how, you know, broadcast will look with this. I think your assets, and I know a lot of our audience here will understand as well, if you've ever watched an A block, which is start of show of LPL, if Munchables is on it, you'll see a lot of innovative graphics. You'll see a lot of fun graphics as well, to the limit of what our team can make.
A lot of stupid shit as well.
I'd say fun shit. I would say fun shit.
There was a lot of dick jokes in the first split. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that was subtle.
When PP got Sam D were dicking everyone down in the bottom lane. I'm not gonna lie. We
that was hard.
We went a little ham on that.
That was hard not to.
We went a little too ham on that.
Yeah, but your production influence, like, do you feel like it's had a big effect on like how you are setting up your cast? Like, do you constantly think about what the broadcast looks like even when you're casting or doing some of these A blocks?
Yeah, so it depends. So the thing that nobody gets about what a producer is until you've done some producing yourself is that producer is the most vague title maybe of any job ever.
It is.
Producer literally is just, you just need to get everything done. Whatever needs doing for this broadcast to happen is part of your job. Whether doing it directly or getting someone to do it, or like, you know, hiring freelancers or cleaning the stage or dealing with the fact that the food orders come in and there's no vegan option for this member of talent who's having a fucking hissy fit now, or fucking you need to organize an area for people to have a cigarette break, or you need to fucking, there's a million and one different things that you need to do as a producer. So honestly, for me, the biggest thing I took away from producing, it's not even broadcast related. It's just being on top of shit is a skill that is not appreciated anywhere near enough. It's one of my favorite things in anyone. Like, when I'm looking at colleagues, the thing that I value the most in any of my colleagues is that when shit is going on, they don't become like a deer in headlights and panic. They just get shit done. They just crack on. They just get through it, because at the end of the day, we've got a fucking show to run. And the most important thing is the show. That is, like, my mantra has always been that, like, I have two mantras. The show is the most important thing. Like, no matter what else is going on, the show is why we're all here. Like, none of us are bigger than the show. And the second mantra is people follow players, not sports, but that's a different story. So getting shit done is the biggest thing that I took away. But also from while I'm not even just while I'm commentating, but while I'm on the show, I try and think. So I produced a couple of PUBG shows. Where I was the sole producer of these ones. So we had like, obviously I talked about the Dota event and stuff. That was a big production room with like 20 staff in it. So I was just a cog. I was in charge of all the graphics, but I was not like the leader of the show or anything. I was still following orders. In this PUBG show, I was actually calling all of the shots. It was my show. And I had to answer to my boss ultimately, but I made all the decisions on what the graphics were going to look like. I made all the decisions on what the A block was going to be. I made all the decisions on how we were going to run the show, whether there was going to be B-roll, whether there was going to be replays. Any decision like that was down to me. I had a budget. I hired my own staff, everything. And so I would be sat there. I've meticulously planned this show all week long. We get there on the weekend. I'm obviously not commentating because I have to run the broadcast. And my talent are there, and I've told them, here's the things I really want you to talk about. And they've got their own storylines. We talk a little bit about like what we all want to discuss, blah, blah, blah. We get onto the show. They don't talk about the thing that I want them to talk about, or they don't set it up the way that I want them to set it up. They're not putting their heart and soul into it. They're not like, and this isn't against the talent I was using, to clarify. This is not anything about them. It's like you suddenly realize that the way that a producer looks at the show is like they have a very clear vision and goal of how this show is going to happen before it's happened.
Yeah.
And so anything the talent does is inevitably at least slightly different to the original like vision that they had of how this show is going to run, right? So what I discovered while producing was like, fuck, it's really fucking difficult to put across what you want this to be like. Like
True.
It's almost impossible to like really put that across and get that exact vision into the talent that you have on the show's minds. And so while I'm being talent, especially in A blocks and stuff when you're actually on camera, I'm always conscious of like, if I was producing this segment, which we do self-produce our segments, let's be honest.
We do self-produce, yeah.
It's like I'm acting. It's like there's a script. It's not to the point where every word is planned, but to the point where I know the beats of this story that I'm telling, and I know which parts need to be emphatic. I know which parts need to be exciting. I know which parts need to be sad. Like I'm almost playing a character is too strong, but like there is a story to be told here, and it needs a storyteller that's going to give this story the emphasis that it needs. And so there's like a level of like performance there that's required, especially in A blocks. Yeah. And like during commentary, I don't think it's quite the same because it's kind of more free flowing depending on the game. And so you'll kind of just have like stats that you want to bring up and narrative points that you want to bring up and find ways to weave those in. But especially with the on-desk segments, I think there's really an art to that. And I think working as a producer for a long time really helped me kind of acknowledge that that is an art and a craft that can be built up a lot over time. I think one of the best people to look at is Froscurian for this, actually, because I think that when you look at Froscurian from 5 years ago versus modern Froscurian, like her, every single time you listen to her make a point on a desk, like she fucking sells that point, and there's a fucking talent to that. There's not many, in my opinion, there's not enough analysts that really know how to fucking sell a point and get you hooked on that point, you know? So I think that's a really valuable talent that a lot of analysts around the world could do better at.
I remember just context on Froscurian when we worked together in spring in playoffs. I think it was spring playoffs, yeah. And she came on board and like, you know, I set up the segment. And a lot of the time when you have guests come in as casters, you know, you're going to be setting up the majority of the segment because you're the resident LPL caster. Whether you're a play-by-play or analyst, like you're the person that, you know, has obviously going to be watching more of the league, but also is the person who's employed by that product. But I remember coming on and being like, hey, showing her the run of show as well. And then she came back and said, that's cool, happy to work with whatever. Here's a couple of suggestions or whatever, how it would flow better. And I remember that feedback being like, actually, yeah, that's really nice. And she had a really good set out of like how to tell that story you talk about. And you're right, she shout out to Frosk and how she does those A blocks, because it was absolutely
and like
brilliant.
Acknowledging the actual emotion that you're trying to tap into, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying the stats and saying the talking points,
how
like
you
acknowledging this is the story
emotion
that we're telling. This is what we're trying to get across to the audience. And like once you actually acknowledge that and accept that there is a goal more than just saying this player is good, right?
Yeah.
Once you realize that this is actually you're trying to make the audience empathetic to this player.
That's right.
Is really the goal of a lot of these.
I mean, we want them to latch on
that and take it from that mindset. Then it gets a lot easier to do a better job, I think.
We want them to latch on. I mean, that's the goal. Like A block is, you know, give them a story to latch onto, right? Whether it is a player, whether it's a team, like what, you know, where it's, you're right. Like we're selling a product essentially, and the product is the team. The product is the player. I think your value of you know, production in the past, and I know it is a wide role, but at least you looking over so many different elements of broadcast have made you not only empathetic to, you know, production team, even like product owners, right? But also to all the little irritable parts, all the things that can go wrong in a broadcast, and you understanding like how best to deal with them or how to proceed. Your insight, I think, is one of the most valuable things. And I think it is what makes your A block so good, because you look and go, how would I set this up from the outside in, rather than just as casters being like, oh, we look at one line, but you're looking at many different, if that makes sense. Especially since you're right, we do produce we are our own producers on the English side, and essentially we run things through our awesome man Shalian, who runs the show from them. Yeah, absolute legend. I'm going to finish off with one simple question, and
shout out to Yadong, rest in peace.
Yadong was great. Our graphics producer.
He's not dead, by the way. He got promoted, but
well, he deserved. I mean, I know why. Our graphics of, I think he was doing a little bit in 2020 and all of 2019.
I think he did the vast majority of 2020, right?
Yeah.
And then towards the end of 2020, I think summer split 2020 was when he kind of phased out. And
good guy.
He went to the LCK podcast.
So, well, what a good thing.
I want to quickly clarify. He went to the Chinese translation LCK broadcast, not the I'm not spitting on the LCK English.
You literally just
I love you English LCK.
I don't know, dude. I don't know how you come back.
They took your dong from us, Jake. How can you be this laissez-faire about it? Your dong's a legend.
Yeah, he's a legend, but you still spat on LCK broadcast.
Bastards.
I'm gonna round it out with this one question because it's the same questions. What I want to do with this show is like ask the same questions and look at the different responses so that people have a strong control of, like, the same basic questions. We've looked just at you today, and in the second part we'll look more about play by play and like what you actually think of the role when I bring you back, because it's been a long episode and I'm grateful for it as well. Like I've kind of lost time with you.
I like talking.
You do like talking.
And I like talking to you, mate.
I know.
You're great, brother.
You and Lyric. I don't know if I'm fine to talk about your story meetings where you and Lyric have chat, and you lose 7 hours apparently. You guys literally do like a 7-hour story meeting.
It's necessary though, because the thing, right? Let me tell you something, guys.
Yeah.
If you're ever going to a story meeting, and this may be different in different regions, but at least from my perspective in the LPL, when we go into a story meeting is when we prepare all of the assets and things and talk about what we want to talk about in the cast.
Good context. Yep.
If you go into that thinking, I just want to get this done as fast as possible, you're going to have really boring, really cookie cutter graphics because you just did whatever graphic seemed fine.
True.
Whereas if you go into that and you commit the fact that this day is for prep for those casts, and you turn that meeting, instead of just a story meeting to prep those assets, you instead turn that into I'm going to hang out with my co-caster and we're going to talk about this series and we're going to gradually figure out what we want to have as our segment, because these are the parts that are actually going to turn out as major parts of our show. Like, this is the real conversation here. You like discover the story, right? You don't pick the story. The story picks you, okay? And also, I just like hanging out with people. So
you do.
That's kind of a lot of it is like talking about geopolitics and shit. I'm gonna be real with you, but it does help if you like commit to just doing this shit until you figure out the right things.
True. I mean, look, I'm not one to talk. I mean, I remember playing TFT with Clement or Lyric. While we would talk about like one element of the day, so that would go on for a couple of hours, but usually half an hour to an hour. I find it's really different as well because, like, just on that note, like with Jordan, especially, Jordan and I could be quite boring because Jordan a lot of the time will be like, no, I don't like that story. No, I don't want to talk about this. And I'm like, but dude, he got like this. He played well last game. Maybe it's cool like to do this. He'd be like, no, I don't want this. Whereas other people, I think I take a lot of, I don't take leadership with Lyric, and that was the same with Raz. Like, I don't know about you, but like in different duos, like with Rob as well, I don't take pure leadership, but a bit more like, I like this direction more. Let's really do this. And it'd be like, oh, okay, like we can also do that. And where Jordan, I'm the backseat. I'm the second I'm the second in that relationship.
So it's kind of interesting you mentioned that, because it's sort of similar to me, where with when me and Rob are putting a segment together, it's very much like the vast majority of it is very collaborative. We both work on what we want to talk about, and then we build a segment from that. And we both go and find stats, we both go and find B-roll and stuff. Usually when I'm building a segment with Lyric, I essentially step into my producer role.
Yeah.
And he goes, here are the things that I want to talk about. Like, I already have clips in mind that I want to see. I already have stats in mind that I want to use. How do we make this interesting? And then it's my job to do the creative side of things and go, this is how we're going to tell this story. This is how we're going to turn this from just boring stats and B-roll into an actual story of players and make this engaging and interesting to the audience. So it's like with me and Lyric, it's a very different relationship in terms of story meetings to what it is with me and Rob, which is why they're quite different story meetings. But that said, like, my heart goes out to Rob because he had to live with me in 2020.
He did.
And in our story meetings, which would go on for literal days because we were living in the same place, it would be like an ongoing conversation because I'm a bit of a, I don't just talk about Mojo. I live Mojo, baby. I would like pace around the living room. I would like just walk endlessly around our living room because I can't think and sit down at the same time. And I like sitting down is restrictive, man. Like, I hate this chair. Fuck you, chair. So anytime I'm on the phone, I will walk around. I cannot be on the phone.
I do the same. I have to pace. Me sitting in a chair is a miracle most of the times, yeah.
So Rob would basically be sat in his chair, like going like this for the entire story meeting, watching me pace around the room. He must have got dizzy by the end of those, but we would like go deep down the rabbit hole of like how we were going to somehow fit the Little Mermaid into this segment because we've decided that this player kind of looks like a fish or something along those lines. And then eventually Rob would be like, this is fucking dumb. And I'd be like, yeah, let's do something else. So there's a lot of really cool segments that never made it to air because they were just too fucking dumb. But but I think that those kind of journeys make the final segment better at the end because you got the stupid shit out of your system.
Plus, you're building rapport. You're building a lot of rapport. Exactly, I mean, I think you've done that the best out of the team as well. Like, you've built rapport with your color casters, and a lot of it has come through these long sessions that you do. That wasn't the final question. I'm going to bring you to the final question before we finish up. Big thank you to everyone.
I keep tangenting too hard.
No. But at this, like I'm welcoming it. I want to know what your future looks like. I want to know what, like, you don't have to give me hard plans. I'm not your mother.
I want to know what my future looks like. How do I die?
I mean, like, I want to know about your goals, and then I want to know what you think is going to happen with League of Legends as an esport, and like, if that influences you at all. So let's start with you first, and what you kind of want to achieve, and whether it's over a 5-year period, a 10-year period, if it's the next couple of years, like. Do we start as saying something as easy as Worlds, which for any League of Legends caster, I feel like is, of course, a good goal?
Yeah. So I think, obviously, 12-month goal, Worlds. Who could have seen that one coming? I think that one's a relatively obvious goal. That was my goal. Well, that wasn't like my hard goal for this year. That was like a stretch goal for this year. I'm disappointed that I didn't make that this year because I felt like this was the year. But
you should have.
Yeah, obviously next year that's my goal. You should have, mate. You should have. Let's not get down this loop. We've had this conversation. In terms of like stretch goals, I don't necessarily have any that are like super solid. I want to be doing this by 5 years. Well, I do, but not that I want to share. The biggest things for me are like, I want to not just make it to Worlds, but I want to. For me, it's less about an event, and it's much more about like, I want to, like, my very, very like 20-year goal is I want to be the kind of old guy on the broadcast that's been around for so long that like has that respect and that tenure that. When they say something, that it's well researched and that you can trust what they say. I want to be like that kind of character within League of Legends. I want to be a respected personality within League of Legends. And I'm not just talking about like a popular, like, flavor of the month personality. I mean, like, longevity within League of Legends, and I want to be one of the names that is remembered, right? I want, when people think of League of Legends and League of Legends esports, I'd like to be a part of that conversation. And as such, one of my big goals is I want to, as a play-by-play, have a massive legendary call, right? I want to have a call that in 5 years' time is randomly quoted on Reddit because it's appropriate to the conversation, I want to have one of those moments, so I kind of go down in history with that. But then outside of that as well, like just in terms of from a professional side of things, I would eventually really like to go back into producing. I think that's going to be like my secondary career when I'm kind of done with casting. I don't know when that is. I don't think it'll be anytime soon. I think I'm going to do casting for a very, very long time. I intend to, at least. But I would like to maybe return to the producing side of things once I have a much bigger reputation and can ask for more money.
Okay. What about I and by that stage, I mean, I feel like you will. What about like, let's just quickly finish up with League and esports in general. Future of that is my biggest question, because might influence you if you ever moved on, you ever changed esport, or you went back into producing. Do you see an end? Do you see an end with what we're doing?
How it all ends. Probably I'll go to the toilet. I'll think it's just a big shit. It's actually half of it's a shit, half of it's a heart attack. Die on the spot. I think that's how it ends. Okay. Was that the question? Or you asked how it ends?
Right, that's how League of Legends esports ends. Everyone can unravel that.
Oh, sorry.
No. Don't answer that. That's the answer. You've given me the answer. That's how it ends.
It dies with me. That's how big and respected I'll become. When I die, the whole sport dies. It can't continue without me. That's the level that I want to get to, yeah.
Do you think it ever ends up dying? I mean, everything has an end, right? But things like football, like NRL in Australia and AFL still goes on.
So, I think it's very possible that League of Legends dies, right? But I don't think it's likely anytime soon.
No.
I think that a more cynical person than I, which is I'm pretty cynical, would cite game development decisions and things like this and suggest that that's like League is coming to an end. I've seen these kinds of videos the 10 years that I've been playing League.
Yeah.
It's not come to an end just yet. In fact, it's getting bigger every year.
League is dying, all that kind of shit. It's just like, I think someone's just upset that they went 0-10 on Yasuo.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I can vibe with a lot of the points that these people make, but I don't think that enough of these points are significant enough for it to matter. I think right now League is in a commanding position, not just in terms of esports, but in terms of the games industry in general. Yeah. They have an incredibly addictive game, which is rare. When you think about how many games you've played across your life, how many of them have hooked you like League of Legends hooks people?
Yeah.
World of Warcraft is the only other game I can think of that's had anywhere near the level of like addiction that League of Legends gives.
Even
when you fucking hate the game, even when like MMOs, I think just as a blanket, right?
Yeah, okay.
Very, very addictive, right? But like, you can literally have been on a 10-loss streak. You fucking hate the game. You hate yourself. You hate anyone that's within 20 miles of you. You can't stand the thought of another human being. And you definitely can't stand the thought of Yasuo right now.
Yeah.
The idea of playing another game is abhorrent to you. What do? You click play again.
You play again. Yeah.
I don't think that game's going to die anytime soon. I don't think balance changes are going to be enough for that to die in a significant way anytime soon. I think that's going to go for a long old time. They really, honestly, Riot have to fuck this up big time for League of Legends to die in the next 10 years.
Yep, agreed. I think it's big. I thought you were putting the palm over
No,
the face to be like,
that's
oh,
the end of the
shit.
video. No,
Is that
I was just getting it to refocus.
Touch wood. Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree. But yeah, look, I hope you have a happy, healthy career. This is going to be the end of part one. Thank you for joining me. You're obliged now. You have to join me for a second part.
That's okay. I'm down.
Okay.
But this next time you have to have a beer as well.
I'll have a beer next time. Well, at 8 a.m.
Yeah, mate.
Okay.
Shoey.
Do a shoey at 8 a.m. Well,
if you do a shoey, I'll do a shoey.
All right, shit. I don't have any shoes though that I'm comfortable with getting beer in. You know.
Yeah, no, me either. Actually.
Expensive shoe. But yeah, we'll come back with another part. I'm hoping now that I've removed the soundtrack source out of Streamlabs. Could you imagine after these 2 hours and 10 minutes, the VOD has no desktop audio, which means no audio of you? Can you imagine? Ah, fuck! I don't know why I said that. I really hope. I'm
very imaginative, and I can imagine that.
Let's hope.
I've done it.
But thank you again. Next time we come around, you and I will talk more about play-by-play and what the role is itself. I'm gonna run this on an intermission and return back because I normally stream in like an hour's time anyway. So we're gonna run it into
have a wonderful stream.
I will.
And you know what? If we never talk again, Jake, have a fucking incredible life. You know?
I'm quite sure.
If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I hope you have every success you ever dreamed of.
Thank you. Well, I hope you don't get hit by a bus so we can do part 2. Appreciate you coming on much. Thank you again. And I'll see you for the next episode. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, chat.